Hey friends, hope you guys are all having a great week. Where I'm at, we got a lot of snow in the last couple days, so that's always fun. Um, I just love shoveling constantly. It's just the funnest thing ever. Anyways, enough about that. It is beautiful though, I will say that it is extremely beautiful. So there is that pro to having snow. Anyways, this week I want to talk about daycare. This is a question that I get a lot. Daycare is a pretty big concern for parents who have sleep trained their child, and they're scared or nervous that if they put their child in daycare, or when they put their child in daycare, or maybe their child already is in daycare, that it's messing up their child's sleep. And um, I mean, it does mess up their sleep because daycare is nothing like home sleep. It's just completely different. So I wanted to explain why that is, and I wanted to also explain what you can do to ensure that your little one is getting a good sleep at daycare. And by good sleep, I mean probably not as good as at home, but at least they're getting a decent enough sleep. Sorry about that. My phone has an alarm. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to go into would be why. Why doesn't your child get a good enough sleep at daycare? What happens at daycare that is so different that they're really not getting a good sleep? And although that may seem obvious to some people, others might not really fully understand this. I personally have worked in a daycare. I've worked in a couple daycares, and so I know how it works on the inside. And then being a sleep trainer now, I also know how it works on the outside. So one, I'm going to give you three reasons why the daycare is different, different sleep at daycare. But there are also many other reasons and other things going on. So these are just basically the top three. So the first one would be it isn't dark enough. Daycare is not dark enough, especially not as dark as it is at home. If you know anything about sleep training or anything about what can help your child get a good night's sleep, you want to make sure that their room is pitch black dark. I'm talking about like a cave dark, like pitch black. That ensures that the melatonin in their body can be produced, and this melatonin can help your child fall asleep, and it can also help them stay asleep. So melatonin is extremely, extremely important. So, what you want to make sure, well, I mean, at daycare, even if a daycare tries, like at my daycare, we did try to make sure it was as dark as it could be in there, but it's still not that dark. You can still see everybody in the room. You can, like it's just not possible to be able to make sure that it's pitch black dark in a daycare. So that is one thing that can really make it hard for your child to fall asleep. They can see everything around them. They're like, okay, what's going on? Like, this isn't very dark, and then their melatonin isn't being released properly. So, therefore, they're not falling asleep as easily. And another one would be that it's not as quiet as it is at home. Obviously, there more than likely isn't white noise. Most daycares don't even know about that asset. Some daycares do play really calming music in the background. We did at my daycare. Sometimes that can help children, and sometimes it can't. But just the simple fact that there's however many kids in one room and they're all trying to fall asleep at the same time. And some of them might put themselves to sleep by talking. Some of them might put themselves to sleep by humming, or, you know, some kids like bang on the side of their crib or whatever. And those are all soothing techniques that little ones use to get themselves to sleep. As weird as we think that is what they will do. Each child is different, obviously, and each child falls asleep differently. But when your child's trying to fall asleep and there's all these other kids like trying to fall asleep as well, it can be hard. It's not really as quiet, and it's not like at home where it's calm, it's quiet, and they can easily drift off to sleep. And then the last thing I want to talk about was stimulation. Stimulation is obviously a big thing at daycare. When your child is at daycare, you're extremely stimulated, or they are extremely stimulated. And usually there's not a lot of wind down time before they go for their sleep. We didn't do that at my daycare. They had lunch, and then after lunch, they played for a little bit, and then we laid them down. And it was like, okay, well, how can you go from playing to boop, go to sleep now? It's not easy for a child to do that. They need a little bit of wind down time in order to drift off to sleep easier. And that helps because they're very stimulated. There's a lot going on. They're running around, they're playing, it's a lot. So it makes it more difficult for them to wind down and fall asleep. So knowing those things, obviously, it makes it easier to understand why your child is really not going to get very good sleeps at daycare. At daycare, they're more than likely going to have short naps, and those short naps can make it really hard, especially if you don't know how long they nap for or when they woke up or anything like that, and then you don't know to put them to bed at an earlier time. So it's like very confusing for parents. So I'm going to give you guys some tips of what you can do to ensure that your child is getting a good sleep at daycare, or at least a decent sleep. And the first thing I want to say is have a conversation with your daycare provider. It's extremely important that you go in and you talk to your daycare provider. A lot of parents don't like to do this. They kind of feel like they're stepping on their toes, like, oh, but the daycare doesn't do this, and I don't want to like be telling them what to do at their own daycare. The bottom line here is it's your child. It is your child, and regardless of what the daycare does, you need to let the daycare know how you feel about what your child is doing in daycare. Being a daycare provider myself, I would want to know tips and tricks on how to get your child to sleep better, easier ways, advice on anything that can pertain to your child. But in this aspect, we're talking about sleep. So yes, give them information, write down tips and tricks and advice that you have that works for your child to ensure that they can go to sleep well and easier. So obviously write down your own advice and tips that you use, because each child is different and each child has their own ways of falling asleep. So make sure that you write those down, give them to your daycare provider. Don't be afraid to do that. And then I'm going to give you what I would consider the three most important things to discuss with your daycare. And the first one would be, is a nap routine possible? Ask your daycare provider if a nap routine for your child is possible. Nap routines are usually not really that long. I would say 5 to 10 minutes. So, it should be doable. And there's not really much to them. Maybe you read them a book. Maybe you do something, just something that you do with your child before they go down for their nap. And that should be pretty easy for a daycare provider to do. So definitely, let them know. I would write down what you do for the nap time routine. Write it down, give it to them for future reference, and they can do with that. They can use it when they're ready to put them down for a nap. And the next one I wanted to say would be to ask your daycare provider, can you wait before trying to calm my baby or toddler? So ask your daycare provider not to run over to your child as soon as they start crying when they're sleeping. Because obviously anyone who's sleep trained their child or who knows anything about letting your child get a good sleep is that they need to be falling asleep independently. So if they wake up and they're being run to like that, that can actually create a habit, which was something that you're going to have to deal with at home too. They're going to expect you to come to them when they wake, and they're not going to stop crying until you run to them. So making sure to tell the daycare provider not to run to them when they wake up is super important. This can be kind of hard for daycare centers because if one child starts crying when everyone else is sleeping, you're risking everybody else waking up. So, of course, it is a little bit harder for them to be able to ensure to do that. But you can tell them, even if it's just a couple minutes, even if it's just 2 minutes, just don't run to them the second they wake up. If they can do that, it will make a huge difference for you. And then the third thing that I want to talk about, the third and final thing, would be to ask your daycare provider if they can provide nap times. This is probably one of the most important things you can ask them to do. This should be extremely easy and simple for them. I don't see why they would say no about this. This is the one thing that as a daycare provider, I would have loved to do for parents, because I mean, I can say time and time again that I've heard parents say, I get my child back from daycare and they're either up all night because the daycare provider won't wake them up when they're supposed to wake them up, or they are extremely cranky and tired. And that's because they had a very short nap and you don't know when they woke up. You don't know how long they slept for. So you don't know if you need to give an early bedtime or what time to give it. So if you ask them for nap times, then you will know if you need to give an early bedtime, and you'll also know when to give that early bedtime. So ask your daycare provider to write down when your child fell asleep, when they woke up. If you know that, then you'll know how long they slept for, you know when they woke up, and you'll know when to give them a bedtime, an early bedtime, if they need one. So those are the three most important things that I have for you. I wanted to say that if you do go to my blog, which will be attached to this video, you can find a little graphic in there, and you can save that graphic for future reference on the three things to ask your daycare provider, so that you don't have to try to find my blog again or anything like that. Although there's nothing wrong with that, and you'll find a lot of other good blog posts in there too that will be of help to you. And then the last thing is just a special warning for parents of little ones who need assistance, such as rocking to sleep and feeding to sleep, bouncing to sleep, etc. If your child needs that kind of assistance to get to sleep, I can assure you that your child is going to have very short naps, and they will not improve at daycare. They may even get worse. They might not even nap at all. So what I want to say to you is that if that is your child, then please, if they are 4 months and older, it will be time, or they are more than likely ready to be sleep trained and taught how to fall asleep independently. So if that is you, send me a DM and I will give you a free consult, and we can get your baby started on learning how to fall asleep on their own, which will make a huge difference in daycare. So that's all I have for you guys today. I went a little bit over in time. I don't really like to go over 10 minutes, but I did, and I don't like that. So I'm going to let you guys go. If you like this video, please leave a comment. If you have any questions, comments, leave them in the comment box. Also, I will have the link to my Facebook group in there. And my Facebook group is where I give free advice, tips to exhausted parents who are really, really wanting to improve their child's sleep. I can help you do that, and I can help you do it for free. So join my group. I hope to see you there, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your week and have a great weekend. Bye.